Hello, I'm Bhavesh, and in today's video, we are going to talk about databases in AS400. So let us begin. The database engine in AS400 is DB2, or you could say the database software is DB2 database. So what does it compare to? It compares to MySQL, PostgreSQL. It compares to the other relational database softwares that you have, like Oracle database, Microsoft SQL Server, and other database tools that are there on other systems. So on AS400, the database, the default database system in use is DB2. So DB2 is native to AS400. It is managed by IBM, and it provides a lot of support for usage of DB2 database with AS400. That being said, this is not the only database engine. It is possible to install other database engines like MySQL, PostgreSQL, and so on and so forth. Some using the PAC system and so on. So we are going to look at the native database to AS400, that is DB2. So the next topic we are covering is why. Why do we need a database? So we could store everything in a file, but then the problem with that is that data is unstructured. If we want to fetch something, we want structured data. So structured data is a way to store structured data is through relational databases. So relational databases usually look like this, which are tables. So these are called SQL tables or database tables. So with the database table, you have column names. So name is a column, dry or wet food is a column, and these are rows. So a relational database table is made up of rows and columns. But in AS400 language, we call them, the column names are specifically called fields, and the rows are called records. So we are going to use the AS400 names. So the column is field and the row is a record. So if you look at an example, name is a field, dry/wet food is a field, pedo, dry, and y. So the first entry in here in this SQL table is a record. So this table has 4 records. This table has 3 fields and 4 records. So we are going to continue talking in the AS400 lingo with records and fields. The next term we will now look at is PF and LF. So PF is a physical file. So physical file is nothing but an SQL table, and a logical file LF is the view of the table. The physical file actually stores your data. It occupies space, data space in your database system, whereas a logical file is only a view of that data. So logical file object will not have data of its own. It will only have a way of looking at the actual physical file. It might have some select omit criteria. It might have a different set of fields which are there. So the data would be a subset of the field. The data would be the subset of the physical file. Or you can also have a join logical file. So with a join logical file, you can combine 2 physical files, and then the logical file which is created, you will get combined data in a join logical file. But we are not going to go into any advanced topics as of today. So basically, PF is a SQL table or just a relational database table. A logical file is an SQL view. So that being covered, we have covered the basic concepts of database in AS400. So now, how do you operate on or how do you look at data, or how do you execute queries in AS400? So the command to execute queries is STRSQL. STR stands for start, and SQL is, well, structured query language, SQL. So STRSQL will get you into the query utility of AS400. So let us log in to our AS400. So once you're logged in, you can execute the STRSQL command. You can type STRSQL and press enter. So you will get this screen with a command line below. So this is actually a query line where you can type your queries. So the first thing to do after logging in and after starting STRSQL is to make sure that your commitment control is set to *CHG. I will just touch upon what is commitment control over here. So commitment control manages the changes that you make to the database. Are they automatically committed, or are they temporarily done and they are committed only when you type commit? The commitment control is nothing but making sure that, and setting it to *CHG is making sure that your changes to the database are only temporary. So if you do a mistake, if you update all the records in a file, or if you delete all the records in a file when you did not intend to delete, or you did not intend to modify, you wanted to modify only 2 records, but you end up modifying 100 records. So you modify the entire file, you miss a where query and you modify the entire file. So mistakes can happen. So you should always make sure that your first of all the commitment control should be *CHG. So how will you check that? Once you start with STRSQL, you should press Shift F1. Shift F1 will give you these 4 options. You are supposed to go to the first option, 1, press enter. So this will again get you to another screen, which is change session attributes. Here, you're supposed to make sure that the commitment control is set to *CHG. This will avoid a lot of headache for you and a lot of worry and a lot of problems in the future. So believe me, you do not want to get into the problems of accidentally committing into a database automatically. So with *CHG commitment control, you have the option to roll back. If you do not commit, or if you accidentally log out after a period of time, after a timeout time, your job will be killed automatically and your changes that you have done through the SQL interactive session will get automatically rolled back. Or if you find out that the query that you have executed is wrong, you can anytime execute the rollback command within STRSQL, and the changes that you did which are not yet committed will be rolled back. So the first step after starting STRSQL is to make sure that your commitment control is set to *CHG. Without this being *CHG, you will not be executing a single command in STRSQL, because the data on the core systems is very important. We cannot take it for granted. So whether it is a development server, whether it is a production server, no matter whatever it is, this parameter is going to be *CHG. So after having emphasized about it enough, let us press enter. So by default, it is none. By default, this is set to none. So you have to change it to *CHG. So you do that, and then you press enter. Then you're brought back to the previous screen again, and then you press enter again. Then you're brought back to the main STRSQL input. So here you're allowed to input, or you can execute queries. So to execute queries, you will need a physical file and a logical file. You do not have any because you are currently on a PUB 400 system. So there may be some system physical and logical files, but we can easily create our own physical and logical file. So there are basically 2 ways of creating a file, or creating a physical and logical file in AS400. So there is the hard way and there is the easy way. So the hard way is the traditional AS400 way of using DDS. So DDS is basically so on IBM website, if you go to the documentation of IBM, there is a detailed description on what is DDS, how to create physical files using DDS, and so on. So IBM still recommends using DDS to create physical files, but this is the traditional way of doing things. If it is not really required in some scenarios where the physical file has to go through certain syntax validations or some formalities at the time of development, where you have a specific way of doing things in your company. If DDS is the way to do things, then you should use DDS. But you can also create physical files without using DDS. So data description specification is the traditional way of defining a physical file and a logical file. It looks something like I'll show you an example. So defining a physical file with DDS can look like this. So you are required to create a member physical file. So to create a physical file, you are required to create this member in the first place. So this member will define the structure of your physical file. It will have the definitions of which field it is, which field do you want, what should be the length of the field, what should be the data type of the field, and so on. So there are various record formats here. You have file record identifier, then you have field record type, and so on and so forth. So we will go into DDS in detail in a specific separate video for DDS. So for now, we can create a physical file and a logical file for our demo purposes within SQL itself. So I do not recommend this way if your organization does not want you to do it. So first of all, find out if this is the correct way. If it is not, then use the traditional method. Okay. So now to create a physical file, it is the easy way. Through SQL is using SQL create command. So we can create a table, and I can create a table in my library, or that is a physical file in my library. So I can create temp100. This is the name. This can be a name of my physical file. I can press F4. It will give me a lot of options for the interactive screen when I press F4. So whichever field you do not understand, you can press F4 for a drop down, or you can press F1 for help menu. You'll get a great detailed explanation for every single input field that you are required to enter. So let us create a dummy file, emp number. Type, I do not know what are the types, so I'm going to use integer. So for integer, length is not allowed to be entered, so I'll keep it blank. Second is employee first name, f name, that is going to be first name. So this I'm going to keep as varchar 40 length, and then emp last name. This is also going to be a varchar and then 40. So there are a lot of other data types also. You can go through it in your own session and find out what do you want to use. Okay, so this is only a dummy physical file that we are creating right now. So we are not exploring all the options. This is a mini demo of creating a physical file. So input the minimum required data, and we have created a physical file. Now let us query on it. So it shows you the output of the select query, and it is blank. There is no data in it. Let us insert some data using the insert statement. So insert into my file, press F4. So F4 gives you a different interactive menu every time. So if it is a select query, it will give you its specific interactive menu. If it is update, it will give you a separate tailor-made interactive menu for update, create, delete, insert. Everything has a specific interactive screen. So you do not have to remember your queries. You can just fill out the automated fields which are there, or the screens which are there, and you can get on with executing SQL. Okay, so we are inserting, and then we'll insert random data. So employee number 123, employee name John, and employee last name is Smith. So if I press enter, so it says John not found. It said that because first name and last name are varchars, just string. I'll put it in a single quote, put the data in single quotes and press enter. It says not valid for operation. That is because I've kept my commitment control on, and this is not a journal file, so it will not allow you to execute the query without no commitment control. So this is actually counterintuitive, but we have to do it because our files are not yet journaled. We'll discuss journaling later on. So now I've inserted one record. I can insert another random data, and then we will do an inquiry. So 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have input two different set of records in our physical file. We can go back to our select query and execute it. When we execute our select query, we see the random data. Okay, so how do we know that this is a physical file? So we can do a work obj. We can come out to the main command line, and we can execute wrk obj. As you remember, everything in AS400 is an object. So I can just do work obj slash the name of the physical file that I've created, and it will tell you over here that it is a PF. That is a physical file. Now we can create views on this physical file also quickly. So the way to create a view is, the short way to create a view is create view and F4. You can give a view name. So temp 100 view v I can give for view, and the library name is my library name. And what should be the view on? The view should be on my physical file. And which fields do I want to select? I want to select all fields. Do I want to give any where condition? No, I do not want to give. So I've created my view. So if I do select star from, it will show me that. It will show me the same data. Now, how do we know that this is the view? We can do wrk obj temp 100v and my library name. It tells me that it is a LF. That this object is a file type object, and this is the LF file, that is a logical file. So if there would be lots of data in our physical file, we would be able to see that the size of the physical file increases, but the logical file does not increase. So you can try to insert a lot more data in it as an example, and try to see the size only of the physical file being increased and logical file remaining same. So the next point to cover is how to save the output of queries into our temporary file. So the easiest way to do that is, for example, I want to have this data stored into a separate temporary file. How do I do it? I press Shift F1, then 1 again, and instead of select output 1, that is display, I can change it to 3, this file. And where do I want the temporary file to be? I want it to be in my library, and the name is going to be temp0. So we always keep this as option 5 in order to make sure that we do not replace a backed up data. But if you're creating a new file for the first time, or if you really want to replace it, you can use any of the other options. But the default that we recommend to keep is 5 every time. And then after you change the settings of STRSQL, you can rerun the query, and it said that it has created temp0, or it has added 2 records to temp0. That is because I already had some data, because the option that I had selected was add to member. So it just added the 2 records. I should instead use option 2 in my case. I've used option 2 and I'll execute it again. Okay, so that is a physical file, already exists. So we'll have to give a different name. So we'll give the name as temp5. Let us execute. Yeah, so it says temp5 created. So we'll just execute a query on temp5. We get the same data that was in our view into a separate temporary file. So we have covered the basics of databases, DB2, physical files and logical files. So there is a great deal of other options which are there, or there are a lot of concepts which are to be covered in PF and LF. We will be covering those concepts in later videos. This was a very basic introductory video for DB2 and IBM AS400 databases. Do subscribe to the channel if you want to watch more, or if you're interested in AS400 videos. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.